Welcome,
We did it!
everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Oz. I asked Dr. Oz for help, you guys. We were having some technical difficulties going live today, and Dr. Oz took care of it for us. So thank you, Dr. Oz.
Apologize for the late start to the stream, everybody. Welcome to episode 35 of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. We have a jam-packed show ready for you guys today. I'm super excited about this show today. We have a couple of very amazing, fantastic topics today.
Yes.
We got the topic, the headline topic, which is the future of Medicare, right? But to start the show off, we have a topic that both of us have been having conversations about, and I think we both have some interesting perspectives on, I think. And that is individuals that try to make themselves seem as big as possible, even at the risk of, dare I say, inflating reality in the efforts of recruiting.
Breaking the rules, lying. I
don't know if it's a smoke and mirrors game. We're gonna get into that.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, people that post screenshots of AEP deposits and
yes,
and why, in my opinion, it is a bad thing, and why I don't think you should do it. It's just not, in my opinion, a smart thing for any of us going forward. So we got a lot to jump into. So let's start with.
Do you want to start with the deposits?
Yeah. Let's start
with the deposits, because there's one individual specifically that I'm thinking of who
I see several every year, by the way.
Well, but there's
not just
one
person I think about, but
there's one person specifically who has been habitual about annual AEP deposits being posted. Where like every January for the past 4 Januaries, I feel like I see this person just spamming their screenshots of their bank account. And there's a few things of why this bothers me. One is, if you understand how an LOA commission works, okay? If you have an agent that has assigned commissions to you, your agency, if they sell a policy, that carrier or that upline will pay you, and then you're responsible to pay the agent that's under you that you recruited. So if someone shows this giant deposit and they're acting like they did all of this work, which I feel like this individual specifically is trying to kind of frame it that way, it could be all pass through. That money might not even be staying in that account at all. So that's one piece of this that always bothers me, is like, you have no idea. What is that number? That's meaningless. I could create a bank statement screenshot right now that's totally meaningless.
Well,
like
I think my perspective on it is like, we could post screenshots for days that would blow your guys' minds, right? Of what our business does on a monthly basis, but we don't, because there's a multitude of reasons why not, right? I think it's asking for trouble. But the biggest thing to me, and most of the people that I do see that post screenshots, I'm not going to pretend like I really know the inner workings of their business or how it's coming. I really have no idea. But it appears to me that it's kind of in like the vein of recruiting. It's like, oh, look at me, look how good I'm doing. And you're seeing on, the bank statements.
This could be your bank account.
Yeah, right. It's like, but you're seeing on the bank statements, Humana, United Healthcare, Aetna.
Right.
It's public. It's not in a Facebook group or anything like that. And I just really, really don't think that's a good idea for any of us, because we're in this environment right now where carriers are kind of being demonized. And it creates almost like this perception that like, oh, look, carriers are pumping this money out to push people towards these different carriers. And like, it's just I just think it's a bad look that the carriers probably don't want to be connected to.
And I think it leaves too much to interpretation, right? I mean, it's legitimate commissions paid on legitimate applications. I'm sure 9.5 out of 10 times, but you are leaving this kind of open-ended speculation to the world, right? If you're like, look, this insurance carrier is giving me tens of thousands of dollars, like,
Right. And the argument I've seen plenty of times, right? And I as well see this every single year around this time of the
yeah,
year when AEP commissions drop. And the argument I always see people push back on with this is it's I'm not doing anything wrong. It's not against the rules. Just because something's not against the rules today doesn't mean that your actions won't create more rules for all of us later. Right? It's like all of the things that transpired prior to, you know, going through Mordor the last 4 years of our current CMS environment, right? Delivering
well,
the ring, the one
yeah,
ring.
the marketing dollars we've talked about the marketing dollars before.
Yes.
That's
Perfect
a
example.
really great, yeah, it's a perfect analogy for what's going on here. The marketing dollars, people were publicly using those funds not for marketing and bragging that they had every right to.
Mm-hmm.
And technically at the time, my understanding is that was true, that the marketing dollars was given to them. And essentially it's their discretion on how they use that money, right? There wasn't oversight in place on saying you have to spend it this way marketing your business.
I think it was a gray area, to be
was,
fair.
yeah,
right?
it was. It
marketing,
wasn't illegal though, right? It wasn't,
no,
it wasn't
right.
wrong.
It wasn't
Yeah.
like a legal thing. The marketing dollars were paid out in good faith that it would be spent on marketing. And
Right.
certain FMOs would use it as like a bribe to get big agencies to move their contracts over.
Yes.
And so I think that is such a good example because you're right. It wasn't illegal necessarily, right? But it was kind of more of like bad faith.
Yeah.
Bad faith for what the money was to be used for and never what the money was intended to be used for by the carriers. That's kind of the way I would look at that. And that ended up creating an avalanche of extra regulation and tightening on it for everyone else. So a couple of people, transact themselves.
Bad apples.
And it just impacts all of us with more rules and regulations. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to throw that in there because I thought it was important context.
No, I appreciate some of that added detail. So there's more ways than just these screenshots though of deposits or bank accounts, which what I think would be hilarious too is if someone was busted for photoshopping. I always think about, because it'd be so easy to photoshop together some ridiculous bank statement. I would love for someone to post a bank statement. Someone's like, oh yeah, that's Photoshop. Like I can tell. But there's other ways that these recruiters or these individuals who are, again, they're really trying to attract agents. They're doing things that aren't necessarily illegal, but they're, again, smoke and mirrors. They're inflating themselves. They're making themselves look a lot bigger than they actually are. And this isn't necessarily new, right? I mean, I think historically in the insurance industry, you've seen recruiters who do all sorts of smoke and mirrors tactics to try to get people to move contracts, to try to get people to work with them. But it's interesting to see how much of this is still going on. And I wish there was, I almost view this as like a PSA that Christian and I want to bring to you guys today, is like public service announcement. If you are looking for an FMO, if you are looking to move contracts, if you're a new agent in the industry looking at who to join up, take a second and really think about who you're looking at doing business with and make sure that there's a reality here, that it isn't just all smoke and mirrors that they're offering you. So Christian, what are some ways that you've seen some of the additional inflation beyond potentially, screenshots that could be meaningful or meaningless?
Yeah, I mean, last piece of anecdote I'll provide on the screenshots on that. I'm not saying, I've posted a screenshot or two in my career here and there, like you get a big deposit, you're feeling good about it. I'm guilty of it in the past. I just would encourage all of you guys, man, the temperature we're in right now,
it is definitely a different temperature.
You're out of your mind to be doing that. In my opinion, you are out of your freaking mind, because I know for a fact, and so do many others, the carriers don't like it. So even if
Yeah.
it's not against the rules, if the carriers don't like something you're doing, that's bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, because if it's not a rule today, they'll find a way to make it a rule later.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and anyway, but to answer your question, right? And I think it kind of segues into, kind of some conversations we've been having. Like, there's a lot of people out there that just find all kinds of ways to make themselves look as big as possible. And it's crazy to me because I've never been a person that believes in that, right?
Right.
Like, if I create a social media platform, let's say this Facebook group, the Facebook group, I mean, you were in it from day one practically.
Yeah.
The first year, I don't think we cracked 1,000 members. I could be wrong, but if we did, it was just barely after the first year. But my memory serves me that it was under. It was always very important to me that it was organic, that it was real people, and that I wasn't trying to just build the biggest Facebook group as fast as I possibly could to make myself look tall. I cared more about the content and the value and the organic nature of it, and I think that's why it's grown to what it is now. It's such an amazing community full of agents from far and wide, and everywhere I go, every event I go to, I have people coming up to me and being like, I love your group, I love everything about it, I've learned so much. You posted this and it just spoke to me, it helped me get through this, it helped me figure out this, you posted this, I learned about this. And so, like, one thing that's in particular is, like, I do think there's a lot of people that on Facebook groups, they try to build big groups and try to get 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people in it, but it's just a nonsense following. Sometimes I think it's bots. Sometimes I think it's just throwing people in and then the group is just dead, right? But then in
Right.
addition to that, you see people on YouTube that just clearly have these big subscriber bases and they're just not based on reality. You can tell, right? Like, if someone has 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and their videos are getting like 200 views, they bought all those followers. I'm sorry. It's just the truth, right? They're all fake bot followers to make themselves look as big as possible. And I've never really gotten down like that. I mean, I could probably look, like I'm Grant Cardone if I did do that, combined with the organic nature of everything we've done. But I've found it kind of tacky and I've never really liked doing it.
Yeah, I think the value, I don't understand the value proposition. That's where I always get hung up in this. And I did see, it was a while ago, but I remember reading like a blog or maybe it was a YouTube video about these fake followers. There's essentially click farms out there, you guys, overseas. I may have seen like pictures before of, they'll have like a stand of like 100 phones, right? Where essentially one person can go through and subscribe, and they get paid whatever it is. I did a quick Google this morning out of curiosity just to see, I'm like, how much does someone pay to get a fake subscriber on YouTube? It looks like $2 or $3 potentially, as cheap as that. So, you want 10,000 subscribers, $20,000, boom, maybe it's literally that easy, that cheap. But what is the actual value? Not to mention, it appears to be against YouTube's terms of service to do that type of transaction.
Sure.
So that's one piece of the puzzle here. But
They
the
don't
other
like it.
side of this, yeah, why would they? The other piece of this, though, is you're killing your engagement. These people aren't real. It's fake subscribers. And so what's the value of even being able to look at your metrics at the end of the day? Like, how can you tell what your actual growth is, your viewing metrics, and then like advertising dollars as well? Like that's going to be based off of, real views, people actually consuming your content, right? Like being paid those advertising dollars on YouTube. So none of it really makes sense unless, of course, you want just that number, right? Unless you want to be like, hey guys, I'm at 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Kind of a big deal. I'm kind of a big deal. I don't know if you know this. That's the only thing that I can see where
I don't know how to
there's
put this,
value.
but I'm kind of a big deal.
Have you Googled me on YouTube lately by chance?
Google me. Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, right? I think the attraction to someone doing it is the off chance that someone runs across their YouTube channel and somebody that just doesn't understand these things. They don't understand metrics. They don't understand, they can't see through like, oh, you have 100,000 subscribers, but you're getting 200 views a video. They're like, that's weird. That doesn't make sense. Like there's insurance channels out there that have 100,000 plus subscribers on their YouTube channel. We have about 7,000 and we get more views on most videos than they do, if not the same. And so I think it's one of those things where it's just like the attraction to it, I think, is just tricking the average, not as plugged in individual to come, just stumbling across their account or their channel and being like, wow, look how big this person's following is, right? And that's social proof, social proof. And so I think that's really all it is, but it's such, in my opinion, a short-sighted thinking.
100%. I mean, imagine if YouTube were to ban your channel, like all of that hard work, right? Like that's the thing I was thinking about this morning when I was looking up. I'm like, how much does it cost if you were to go out and try to buy a fake subscriber? It's like, well, all that hard work of getting your channel rolling, all of those real subscribers that are in there, you just threw all of that away when you violated the terms of service of the platform. Like I again, at the end of the day, it just doesn't make sense to me personally, but
yeah, I mean,
each their own.
It is wild though, because I think it's become more and more of a thing. And I think it kind of circles back to our original topic of what you were talking about earlier. It's like trying to make yourself look as big as possible so you can sell as much products as you want to people. You can recruit people easier. It's like, oh, my upline has 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, but it's like, in reality, how many do they really have? 5,000, 6,000, maybe 10,000.
Right.
If 90% of their audience is bots and fake accounts, it's just wild to me. Like in the early days of social media for me, before anybody knew who I was, I played around with social media things. Like I tried out like on old Instagram accounts that I've deleted and things like that, and YouTube accounts. I would try like the sub for sub stuff, the like for like stuff, trying to find like hacks and ways around it. I bought some followers myself on an old Instagram account just because I didn't know they were bots. I was so dumb at the time. I was like 23. I was like, I'm going to be famous, and then I realized I was like, oh, I have this account with no followers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
no engagement.
It totally kills your engagement on your account. It kind of prevents it from having a possibility of growing. And yeah, I mean, ever since then, I've always been committed. Like, I would rather have a smaller audience than someone, but have more engagement.
I think this is part of a bigger.
Real quick. Audience.
Yeah.
Right. Bots aren't an audience. They're fake people. So I guess that still means that my audience is bigger, if not the same.
Right. Well, right. As far as real people go, this is part of a bigger conversation. When you look at like the Twitter transaction and how that was such a big part of that, right? That was what, last year, the year before? I think it was almost 2 years ago now.
A couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah. And that was such a big part of that transaction was, well, how Elon's like, well, how many of these are actually real accounts? It looks like, you guys said 5% were bots. And he was estimating it could be as much as 50% of the user base was fake. So, and it's like, what was the real number in between? What's interesting too. So, a lot of you probably know Fortnite, right? One of the biggest video games in the market space right now. They have integrated since they released like Fortnite 2.0, which was again probably a few years ago. They've integrated bots into their platform when you are playing online. And I was reading the stats behind it just the other day. 50 to 70% of these online games are fake. You're only playing with 20 to 30% real players most of the time. But if you're in it,
Really?
it's hard to even tell. Yeah, they're using AI bots to fill these lobbies to give this sense of, oh, there's 100 players in here. Plus, it also helps, it gives, I think, some of the novice players a leg up, right? They're feeling better about themselves because they're taking out these bots. But I think in social media, we're going to see a lot of this same thing moving forward. AI is probably just going to make it even harder to tell, right? What happens when the fake subscribers can now be programmed to have false engagement? How will you be able to truly discern who are the real followers and what is completely fake?
I think there is some of that already. Just looking at some comments you see in some places, seems
Yeah.
like there's some of that already. I don't know the I don't know the details of it, but it wouldn't
Oh, I'm
surprise me
sure
if
it
we're
exists.
closer to that than we think.
Yeah, I'm sure it exists for sure. This false engagement. I'm sure it's the narratives out there.
I think the in my opinion, you guys, the point of all this is try to look at things objectively, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you look at something for like I can't use a better example than that. If you have a person with a YouTube channel that has 100,000 subscribers and their average view video gets 200, 300 views, there's something fishy there, right? Like there should be like a connection, I guess, right? Um, on their views and their subscribers and followers and everything like that. Um, and for me, I've just never really trusted somebody that would put on like a smoke and mirrors facade. You know, there's another person in the industry. I won't name them, but someone that you and I both know. I stumbled across like a one of their Facebook business pages a couple years ago, and it had like 40,000 followers. I was like, "What the fuck?" And it caught my interest. Right, it pulled me in, so I clicked on it, and I'm looking at the pictures, and every single picture has like 600 likes, 1,000 likes. But this same person can't crack like 2,000 people in their Facebook group. And I'm like, something doesn't add up here. They've had the Facebook group for years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this don't make sense. So I start looking at the posts, and like every single post is like a Middle Eastern guy. Every single post, like you look beautiful today, Habibi. Like every single comment on the post, it's like an army of them. And I'm like, what it appears is this person bought all these fake followers, buys fake
Right.
likes every day on their pictures, and
Right.
buys fake comments. So
Yeah.
people in Pakistan can be like, "Good morning, Habibi." You know what I mean?
Well, and I think this is a really great way to wrap up this topic is how can you tell what's real from what's fake, right? And I love being objective, like you're saying. I love the idea of if you're seeing 150,000 subscribers and 100 views on average per video, that's a pretty easy, tangible, objective way to be like something on this channel doesn't make sense. Another great thing you can do, I think, is looking at the same individual or the same company on multiple platforms. If they have one platform that's unusually large and they're not really available on any other platform, that could be a potential red flag, right? You'd like to think that there'd be not that every platform they'd have the same engagement or the same size, but you'd like to think that they're found and they're available on multiple different platforms. Another one that I think historically we've seen over the years is someone who overnight has like made it in the industry, right? Someone who overnight is, they're showing these deposits and they just got their license a year ago type individual, right?
Right.
Those are
Right.
the type of people, again, red flag, right? You can publicly search insurance licenses online. You see that this individual who's claiming to, I have 1,000 agents in my downline and, I made $2 million last year. And then, oh, wow, it looks like they haven't even had their license for 12 months. I think holding on to what objective facts you can, and if something doesn't pass that smell test or that first line of sight test when you're looking at stuff, that's when you should raise that red flag and be like, something's not right here.
Yeah, 100%. This episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by my mini course, How to Find and Buy Books of Businesses. Guys, in 2024, Glenn and I, in our combined company, purchased and acquired through acquisition 900 clients. And over the years, we've purchased thousands of clients to grow our agency internally. And we've learned a thing or two over the years, right? There's certain things you need to look out for. You need to know how to value a book of business. You need to know how to transfer everything, what the expectations are in terms of the timeline. And you need to know how to put a deal together and structure it to protect yourself while still at the same time doing good business with people. Guys, this mini course is around 10 videos long. It's a quick and easy thing to get through. And it's a great way for you to grow your book of business in 2025. Whether you're finding an agent that is maybe been in the business for decades and they want to retire, and then maybe they don't have any kids to take over their business. Maybe you're looking at a situation with an agent that just hasn't been able to make it in the business and they're just looking to go off and try other things. Buying books of businesses can be a great way to quickly and rapidly grow your business fast. And we've unveiled all of the little tools and tricks that you need to know in this training. It's a one-time purchase for only $197. For that price, we're practically giving it away. Make sure to check it out now. Now back to the show. Another one that's interesting is like, if you follow somebody and let's say they have 5,000 subscribers on YouTube and they've been doing it, say, for years, they have 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. You're watching a video of theirs on a Monday. You come back to their channel on a Friday and all of a sudden they have 12,000. You know what I mean? Like probably something's up there. And you see that too. Like, like someone will go from like 10,000 to 30,000 like overnight, but they've been like slowly growing to get to 10,000 for years. It's like, oh, you tripled your subscriber base in like 2 days. Did your content just start to blow up? No, your views are the same. And that kind of stuff is fishy. And then, they're at 30,000 and then all of a sudden it's like, a couple months go by. Now they're at 60,000. Like they stayed at 30,000 for 3 months. And then in like a week, they're from 30,000 to 60,000, like that kind of stuff is fishy if you pay attention.
The only person who can pull that off, I think wasn't it Ronaldo? Who was it that just hit like 1 million subscribers on YouTube the fastest in history? I think it was, the soccer player, Ronaldo.
Yeah. That's different.
Yeah.
Like if
that's the only type of person who could pull off like an overnight 1 million followers. Like if you already have some level of fame or celebrity where it's like, okay, this person legitimately increased their following base overnight by 7 figures.
Yeah. So I guess the moral of the story, guys, is just pay attention and you'll notice things.
Yeah.
Glenn, let's shift gears. Talk to us about this episode's sponsor, if you would be so kind.
Guys, today's episode is supported by Hire Heroes. That is hireheroes.com. If you head over there, you can learn more about how you can find a virtual assistant who can get plugged into your business to handle these low revenue or no revenue generating tasks. This could be data entry, bookkeeping, responding to emails, handling phone calls, you name it. Have an army of virtual assistants who help us inside our business and help grow the business every single day. We wouldn't be able to now, as an example, without this army of virtual assistants and the strategies and the systems and the people that we've been able to work with and develop over the years, we are now offering to everyone through hireheroes.com. So if you are looking for help to grow your business, if you're looking to get out from being trapped inside handling these low-level tasks, head over to hireheroes.com, HIREHEROES, hireheroes.com. We would love to help you. There's a quick 2-minute survey to get started on the tasks you're looking for help with. Again, that's Hire Heroes.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, let's transition into the other topic of the episode, kind of the title topic, if you will, and that is the future of Medicare. Future of Medicare, right? There's a lot of thoughts on this. I have a lot of thoughts myself about it, but what are your thoughts on kind of, if someone asked you, like, where was Medicare going in the next 5 to 10 years? What would be your thoughts right off the bat?
We'll be on a one-payer system in the next 12 months. Commissions will be gone. Time to abandon ship, everybody. This is the Titanic. We're playing the violin. Get to the lifeboats. Get out while you still can. No. If you are a listener, if you've been following some of what we've discussed, we were talking about how some agents truly believe the industry's ending, and that's why I made that joke. But what does the next 5 to 10 years in the Medicare space looks like? I mean, it's a really big question, and I think there's a lot of things that can be discussed in this topic. But one thing that the trend on something that we've seen specifically with original Medicare, which again, that's Medicare supplement, right, versus Medicare Advantage. We've seen that trend over the past decade of Medicare supplement really starting to slowly get less and less market share, with Medicare Advantage getting more and more market share. I'm assuming we'll see more of the same over the next 5 to 10 years, with these networks continuing to grow and reach further and further. Potentially we'll see more carriers come into the Medicare Advantage market as well. Alternatively, maybe some consolidation. We talked about some consolidation yesterday too. So maybe some new faces. Maybe we'll see some mergers, right? Sometimes we'll see that happen as well. But the big thing for me when I think future of Medicare, like the number one thing off the top of my head is Medicare Advantage will continue to grow, and Medicare Supplement and Original Medicare will continue to shrink.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a given. I mean, as much as there's so many just really awesome friends that I have that are Medicare Supplement purists, and they're going to get mad at me for agreeing with that. But I think it's the truth, guys. I mean, all the data points to that in terms of Medicare Advantage increased market share over the years. Medicare supplements will keep getting more expensive, and Medicare Advantage plans will keep getting easier to use, more user-friendly, and over a long period of time, I think more benefits. And so, I just don't see how it's any other way. One thing that's kind of an interesting piece of this conversation that I was I was kind of noticing last night. So I'm sure that you saw this, but our upcoming next president has been kind of publicly pushing and almost like making memes about it and stuff like that. Like I think it's hilarious, but about Canada becoming part of the United States and becoming the 51st state of the United States. Even last night, upon recording this, I was, he put out a meme of the United States with Canada combined, and it was like all in, red, white, and blue, and it said, "Oh, Canada." And that always raises a question, right? Like, now, first off, is something like that even likely to happen? I think it would be an insane thing if it actually happened. If I had to put my money on it, I would bet that it's not going to happen. But if it did happen, something like that always bodes the question, right? Like, would we adopt their healthcare system? Would they adopt ours? I would imagine that they would adopt ours because they're becoming part of us, not the other way around. But
Right.
that always bodes an interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in the sense that I think it's and I think Trudeau, who recently resigned, which makes the whole thing a little more plausible, I guess, is it feels
Right.
like with their prime minister stepping down, it does almost seem like they're saying, take me home, America. Like that. There's a little bit of that in the air, but I think there's a snowball's chance in hell. And that's what Trudeau said, and I probably agree with that. You're talking about, I mentioned mergers and acquisitions a moment ago. This would be quite the merger or acquisition for Canada to become the 51st state in the United States. But yeah, I mean, I would assume, again, the bigger fish, them becoming a part of us. If this were to happen speculatively, I'm assuming they would adopt our healthcare rules.
I would think so. I mean,
yeah.
And I was interested, to kind of see like what people thought about it. So I'm looking in the comments of the post and everything like that. And it's as divided as you can possibly imagine, right? I'm seeing
Right.
people that are commenting, a lot of people that are Canadian, and it's very divided even from them, like there's certain people that they're like, I'm happy I have healthcare. I don't have to bankrupt my family to pay for anything. Well, first off, if you just get insurance, you don't have to. And if you just get like an insurance plan that like you don't have to go out of network, you cover your doctors, like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And then there's others where they're like, I just absolutely get destroyed on taxes, and this would be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so that bodes definitely an interesting thing. I think outside of an event such as that, and even I think even if we did have an event such as that, I think the more plausible thing, like we said, is they would adopt our system. I don't think we would just take them on to take on their system. I don't think it's working that well for them. But I think that outside of an event like that, some cataclysmic event, I mean, people always ask me, I had someone message me the other day. I get mountains of DMs every day from all you guys. And I love it. I love you all. But I get mountains of DMs every day. And got a message the other day from an agent that was like, I'm just getting started. I'm, a couple months in. I have a handful of clients. I've been thinking about, walking away from my job and going full time, but I'm afraid that with everything that's going on with the regulations and the rules and kind of the landscape of things and non-commissionable plans, all the things we've talked about on this show, that maybe it's not the best time. Maybe there's not a future long-term in the space for me. And I think there's a lot of people that are wondering that and have that fear. And in my opinion, I think I said this on yesterday's podcast. There has always been fear. There's always been these whispers. There's always been this fear. In the 90s, when I was a kid, when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, I told this story a bit yesterday, but my father was afraid of Hillary Care when Bill was in office. That was like the big, scary thing. That was like the boogeyman, Hillary Care. And so he went and got his PNC license, went and worked as a farmer's agent for like 3 or 4 months. And then he was like, I hate this, and went back to Medicare. And then the next year he had his biggest year of his whole career,
Yeah.
So like my entire life, I've been around the industry and the business, and I have consistently heard Medicare is going to run out of money. I've been hearing Medicare running out of money since I was like 5. You know what I mean? And here we are. I'm 32. You know what I mean? And so you said something on yesterday's show that I thought was very well articulated, and that was, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think the stage we're in right now is very much a pendulum swinging one way, and I think it will swing the other way. But I definitely think now. Do I think we'll never go to some kind of single payer system or have a change like that? I wouldn't rule out that it will never happen. But do I think it will happen in the next 10 years? I don't. I think it's a long ways out, and I think there's a long trajectory forward for our space.
Yeah, so part of this too. So, the growth of the Medicare beneficiary base, it's going to continue to really explode for at least another 5 years. I want to say was the stats, and even after the baby boomer wave has officially been onboarded onto Medicare, it's still going to continue to grow significantly. It just won't be growing quite as fast. So there is a piece of this conversation about funding, since the government does pick up the tab for such a significant portion of Medicare. There is this piece of government funding that's a question. And it's so hard because this is such a lobbied and such a political conversation at that point that it's hard to see the forest through the trees, because there is those sensational articles and headlines you'll see where it's like, Medicare is going to be bankrupt for sure by 2031, and it's like, but is it? Not to mention, it's like, how can you account for potentially the GDP growth over the next 10 years,
Sure.
Even though Medicare is going to be continuing to balloon and demanding more and more money, maybe the GDP growth or the tax revenue growth, or however, there's so many different ways that potentially it could be funded. And if there's anything I seem to have learned over the past decade of following the political game in Washington when it comes to dollars and cents, it seems like there's always money when they need it, right? Seems like there's always money in Washington when they need it. So I have a hard time believing that one of the biggest voting blocks in America, the Medicare beneficiaries, I have a hard time believing that they will run out of funding for that anytime soon, regardless of the size.
I've always said that the politician that goes in and tries to get rid of Medicare is committing political suicide. They're killing their own career, right? Because you hit it right on the head. The Medicare beneficiaries are the biggest demographic of voters.
Yes.
So like they're the last people you want to piss off.
Yes. 100%.
And I think it makes all the sense in the world. Another conversation that we kind of jumped into a little bit yesterday that I felt like could use a little bit more expanding on today is, we talked a little bit yesterday about the bigger threat than single payer to the Medicare space is probably technology.
Right.
And I don't think that that's a bad take or a wrong take at all. My bigger fear, rather than the government, is an AI technology that can be an agent more compliantly and better than a human, that can do an enrollment, an explanation process, maybe 3 to 5 years from now, and they can be independent and they can represent different carriers and things like that. I mean, that to me is a big threat. Now, I still believe that the average person, the average senior, wants to work with a human being.
Yes.
That being said, nobody thought they wanted the iPhone until they got it. And then they were like,
right.
Wow, this is fucking awesome. Remember the days when you were carrying around your phone and an iPod?
Your
like
phone,
they're both in your pocket?
iPod, yeah.
I remember that.
Yep.
And the thought of
you'd have a phone, an iPod, a camera.
Yeah.
You'd carry, you're carrying around all 10 things.
All these gadgets. And I remember when the iPhone first came out, I was like, who's gonna want that? I'm like, who's gonna want that? I've had, fast forward, I've had iPhones for a decade, more probably. I don't know how long. 15 years. I don't know how long I've had iPhones. I just got a new one the other day. I spent like $800 on it or something like that. And so people sometimes, I think Steve Jobs is the person that said that, how can people know what they want if they've never seen it? And so I think that that risk of technological innovation could be the bigger threat to agents more than anything else. What do you think?
Yeah, I just keep imagining Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back, like the Terminator showing up and being like, I can sell. It's Patriot for the Taco Tuesday fans out there. This is Patriot robot insurance, but for real this
Come to
time,
life.
not just the joke. Yeah, we used to for those out of the loop on that joke. We used to make fun of people who would post, hey, I just, or comment, I just did 10,000 apps this AP, or and so we're like, oh, a robot could do that though, and yeah, I mean, potentially in the future, artificial intelligence, right? And here's the scary part, because what you just said, I totally agree with. Does a senior, if you interviewed a senior right now, and you said, hey, Mrs. Jones, I have this AI technology that can, it's essentially just as good as a human who can help you with your policy. Or I have Christian here who's been in the business for a really long time. He can help you with your policy. 9.9 out of 10 seniors, they're going to want Christian. They're going to want the human. The scary part, though, is what happens when there's no discernible difference? What happens when Mrs. Jones genuinely can't tell if Christian or the AI bot is the real, like who's real, who's fake? Now we're entering a territory of scary stuff. Do I think that is going to happen this year or even next year? No, I don't think we're that close. Do I think it will happen at some point? Potentially, yes. The other part of this, though, is the technology has to get there, but then the other part is the rules and regulations. So even if you could do it right now today, the political spectrum would have to catch up to what is actually available. And this was part of the problem with Tesla and autopilot and self-driving cars, right? Mm-hmm. And the technology hasn't quite been there. I think Elon was a little, I don't know if maybe he was just a little too optimistic about the timeline. But part of the issue with self-driving cars is, how do you create rules around a technology that doesn't even exist yet? What's the rules behind a self-driving car, right? Does the driver have to actually sit there, or can a driver sit anywhere in the car?
Right.
What happens when that car gets in an accident? Is the manufacturer liable if it's driving by itself, or is it the owner? Like there's all these different weird scenarios that you can't even think about that don't apply to the current set of rules. And if you had an AI that could genuinely write policies, I mean, look at E&O insurance, right? Like, how does that play into it? But yeah, I think as far as the future of Medicare goes, that's a big piece of it, because technology should continue to get implemented regardless of how slow these carriers are to adopt it. We should see more and more technology being included as we go.
And I think what I've seen, at least post-COVID, is I've kind of noticed that some carriers, I felt like, have been a little quicker to adopt some new technologies than maybe they might have in the past, right? Like, how many carriers now on the med sup side have automated underwriting? And that's a real thing, and it's freaking great, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're a carrier watching this and you don't have automated underwriting, what you doing, son? Aetna Senior, shout out to Aetna Senior. They have automated underwriting, and 9 out of 10 med sups that we submit with them, we have a decision within like 2 minutes. And never even touches a person. It's pretty crazy. And underwriting is a fairly complicated thing, right?
Can be, yeah.
And so, I've seen some carriers post-COVID, it's almost like you had like a wake-up call. They had a wake-up call. They're like, we can't just chill and do what we've always done, coasting through life, like a butterfly, and having all these paper apps sent into us. Maybe we need to adapt and adopt more technology. And I think with some carriers, we've seen that. Not all, certainly. There's certainly some carriers that are still kind of in the dark ages, like their portals their portals feel like you're logging into Windows 98.
I can hear the Windows theme music. Yeah. It's like, what is this?
Or you're on dial-up.
You're coding. You're in basic. It's like DOS pulls up. You're like, hang on a second. If I enter the right code here, I can get into my portal.
Oh, you're a smoker, Mrs. Jones? Let me make that adjustment.
The computer starts shaking. It's just like, it's like no, no.
Yeah,
Insurance portal just crashes it. Oh my gosh.
But I think that's something definitely to watch out for. A topic that always comes up in this line of conversation. I know we're getting close to the end of the show, so I'll maybe I'll wrap up the points with this before we move to final thoughts. But I always hear people say, and I do agree with it. The people that find ways to integrate and utilize this new technology, not only will they stay relevant and around, but they'll be leaps and bounds ahead of everybody that's not, right? And they'll just take off with their businesses. So I think finding ways to utilize AI technology is a good idea. Now make sure you're doing it smartly, responsibly, everything like that. And if you're watching this and you're not super techie or anything like that, there's going to be services that come out for agents that allow you to tap into what they've developed. CRM companies, for example, tech companies, things like that. And I think I definitely think we're going to move to a place where, like, we got to a point, and I think we're certainly still there, where an agent, let's say, that uses social media versus a one that doesn't, or one that uses the internet versus one that doesn't, the one that doesn't is going to get clobbered by the one that does, right? We're moving to that same place with AI, I feel like, over the next 5 years or so. Right. And so that could be kind of a mindset and a mentality that, it doesn't have to put you out of business. Maybe you can utilize it to grow your business.
Yeah, and I think that typically that's the way it goes. There's other points that could be made where maybe there is examples of technology wiping out industries. I mean, in the conversation that we just had a second ago here, we're talking about underwriters, essentially underwriters in some product lines. And I know on the life side, it's the same way. A lot of these life carriers on simplified issue business is being automated. They don't need an actual underwriter to sign off on the applications anymore. When I first got in the industry, it was typically, even with a super healthy person on a simplified issue policy, you're still talking about 2 to 4 business days before you really knew if they were going to actually get that policy or not. And it sucked waiting, seeing if Mr. and Mrs. Jones told you the truth about their health, and you're just waiting to see what an underwriter has to say. So, in that scenario, underwriters are essentially losing jobs, right? So, but I think typically as an agent, when technology comes around like this, majority of the time, it's going to help you grow your business potentially faster, help you scale your business faster, make you more efficient. So, there's ways even today with AI, you can do that. So I want to go ahead though. I'll jump into my final thoughts here on the future of Medicare, you guys. So bottom line for me is the future of the Medicare industry, whether you're looking at it from the carrier side, the agent side, the broker side, the beneficiary's point of view, it's going to grow. It's going to get bigger over the next 5 to 10 years. It's not going to go away. It's going to continue to get bigger. There are certain things that we could see happen. Like I mentioned at the start, maybe we see some consolidation among some of these distribution channels. Maybe there's carriers that, and again, this happens from time to time, certain carriers merge and become one. Stuff like that could happen. Maybe there's rule changes going either way, less rules, more rules. But the bottom line for me is, if anything, I see Medicare continue to grow from here. And that's genuinely how I see the future of Medicare. So, Christian, final thoughts. What is the future of Medicare?
Yeah, I would agree with that. To expand on that, I think the future of Medicare is sitting right here. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. Don't flip that. Don't flip that and send that to someone. Be like, he's an egomaniac. No, I'm totally joking, by the way.
We're gonna get canceled by the end of this month. I can feel it. I can feel it.
We're not gonna make it a whole month podcasting.
Rocket ship. We're not going to clear the atmosphere.
Okay, sorry.
I'm all right. I'm logging off. See you guys.
No, I totally agree with everything Glenn said. I think the future of Medicare, I think, in the next 5 to 10 year trajectory, I almost feel like it's impossible to even project farther than that, right? I just feel like you really have no way of knowing what's going to happen. So much can happen in 5 to 10 years. I think some people really forget that. But I do think that, in my estimation, I think the next 5 to 10 years is a bright future. Growth, change, certainly, to the space. And I think you have to learn to change with the space, right? There's going to be changes in how business is conducted, trends, rules, all that stuff. It's going to look probably very different. But I think for those who quickly change, quickly adapt, and are very bullish and don't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out on the industry, and they really go all in on it, they'll do great. And so I think it's a bright future in the next 5 to 10 years, is my estimation.
Agreed.
Guys, I concur.
I concur, doctor.
There's a doctor behind you. Guys, if you watch this all the way to the end, we love you. You're the real MVP. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you're watching on a platform that allows you to do so, please do us a favor. Like Apple Podcasts is a great example. Leave us a 5-star review. If you're watching on a platform like YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like, comment, engage. If you're watching on Facebook or the live stream on Facebook, comment hashtag Team Replay if you end up watching the replay on this. We love to know who our Team Replay people are. And as always, great show. Appreciate you guys, and we will see you on the next one. Here's to your success and your abundance. Thanks, everybody.
Happy selling.